On 5 Live Breakfast this morning, and we're going to be chatting to Chris Wobble after 6. You can hear more about the 2030 Men's World Cup later too. FIFA has announced where it's going to be played, and it's a 3-continent extravaganza. More on that too.
5 Live Drive.
Claire McDonnell and Tony Livesey.
Now away from high HS2. Rishi Sunak announced plans for some big changes to education in England during his speech at the Conservative Party conference this morning. He unveiled a new qualification that will replace A-levels and T-levels called the Advanced British Standard. And he outlined his reasons here.
My main funding priority in every spending review from now on will be education. Why? Because it's the closest thing we have to a silver bullet. It is the best economic policy, the best social policy, the best moral policy. It is the best way to spread opportunity and to create a more prosperous society. It is not just my way, conference, it is the Conservative way.
Well, it will combine academic and vocational elements and means students will take 5 subjects instead of 3, and all students will study maths and English in some form. A bit of a way off. Heidi Neva is an autistic activist and Berkeley I mean, there was so much announced in that speech, and this is pretty major. It wouldn't be rolled out for until 10 years, but it broadens the scope of what you study in A-levels. Often saying a bit like the baccalaureate, the international baccalaureate, where you study not just 3 subjects, you keep subjects going right the way up to the end of your A-level.
I know you haven't got very long. I guess my problem is that, I work supporting families and advocating for families who have children who have special educational needs and disabilities. And my feeling and the feeling within our community of parents and carers is that this is a bit of a sticking plaster over what has been a decade of underfunding within our education system more broadly, but specifically within the SEND system. So we have a generation of children, currently 1.7 million persistently absent from school. That's nearly 25% of all kids missing at least 10% of school. And the gap widens and widens and widens. It feels like popping it at the end, 16 plus, is a bit of a miss. When we don't have enough special schools, we don't have sufficient provision for our SEND students in schools, and we're failing our students across the board.
Yes, there's a lot to get into there, and many people listening would agree with you on that. I guess what he's saying is we need to be ambitious, we need to maybe raise standards across the board. He's calling it the British Baccalaureate, and essentially, I mean, Labour's saying it's an undeliverable gimmick, but, he's obviously been passionate about this for quite some time, hasn't he? He's saying maths should be extended to beyond 16 as well. Is there any argument for saying this actually maybe would push us up the international league tables on these subjects?
I mean, the question I need to ask is, where's the priority here? Are we really interested in international league tables, or are we interested in the health, well-being and futures of our children and young people? And if we're interested in the health, well-being and futures of our children and young people, then we should be looking at education as a means to equip them for adulthood. And a focus on academic learning will simply widen the gap between children who can and children who cannot. And that's a concern for many parents of autistic, ADHD, otherwise neurodivergent children in particular.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking down. Again, it's one of those ones that it just came out in such a big slew of announcements today. The devil is in the detail. There's some sort of reaction. Daniel Kebede, General Secretary of the National Education Union, called it a sketchy proposal, said teaching was already facing a recruitment and retention crisis. Spokesperson for the Sixth Form College Association said the post-16 curriculum, which is narrow by international standards, was partly reflective of chronic underinvestment in sixth form education since 2010. He is promising there'll be incentives, financial incentives and tax-free bonuses for teachers once they qualify. Again, we need more detail on that, but do you think that'll be enough? Because obviously those organisations are saying, nice idea, but, you know, where are the teachers coming from to teach that?
That's